Have you ever promised yourself something, and then broken that promise a few days later? Hello, my friends. Today, I want to tell you a simple story. It is not about talent. It is not about luck. It is about consistency. There was a man named Alex. Alex had big dreams. He wanted a better body, a better career, better English, a better life. Every Sunday night, he felt motivated. He wrote goals. He made plans. He imagined success. And every Friday night, he felt disappointed. He would start strong on Monday, wake up early, exercise, study, work hard. But by Wednesday, his energy dropped. By Thursday, excuses appeared. By Friday, everything stopped. Then Sunday came again. New motivation. Same cycle. One evening, after breaking another promise to himself, Alex sat quietly in his small room. He looked at his notebook, full of unfinished plans. He felt frustrated, but this time, he did not blame his job. He did not blame his schedule. He blamed something else. He blamed his lack of consistency. He realized something painful. He did not fail because he was weak. He failed because he was inconsistent. That night, he asked himself a hard question. What if success is not about intensity, but about repetition? The next morning, he decided to try something different. No big goals, no extreme plans. Instead of 1 hour at the gym, he chose 15 minutes. Instead of studying for 2 hours, he chose 20 minutes. Instead of changing his whole life, he changed one small action. It felt too easy, almost embarrassing. But he told himself, do it every day, no matter what. The first week was simple. 15 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of study, no excuses. Even when he felt tired, he did the minimum. The second week was harder. Motivation disappeared. His mind said, this is too small to matter. But he remembered his rule, consistency over intensity. He continued. One day, he came home exhausted from work. Rain outside, body tired, mind heavy. He wanted to skip everything. He stood in the middle of his room, thinking, this is the moment that decides who I become. Not tomorrow, not next month, this moment. So he did 5 minutes of exercise instead of 15. He read 1 page instead of 20. It was small, but it was consistent. And something began to change. He started respecting himself more. Not because he was perfect, not because he was fast, but because he kept his word. Weeks passed, then months. His body became stronger, not dramatic, but noticeable. His English improved, not perfect, but clearer. His work performance improved, not magical, but steady. People began asking him, what changed? He did not say, I found motivation. He said, I stopped waiting for motivation. He understood that feelings are unstable. Some days you feel powerful. Some days you feel lazy. If you depend on feelings, your progress will be unstable too. Consistency is different. Consistency is a decision repeated daily. It is waking up when you do not feel like it. It is studying when it is boring. It is practicing when nobody is watching. Alex also noticed another truth. When you break promises to yourself, your confidence decreases. When you keep small promises, your confidence grows. Confidence is built through proof. Every day he completed his small tasks, he was collecting proof. Proof that he was disciplined. Proof that he could trust himself. Proof that he was becoming stronger. 1 year later, Alex looked back at his old notebook. The difference shocked him. He was not a different person because of one big decision. He was different because of hundreds of small, repeated actions. He finally understood the secret. Consistency is not exciting. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. But it is powerful. It turns average effort into real results. It turns small habits into strong character. It turns ordinary people into disciplined individuals. And maybe the most important lesson of all was this. You do not need to force yourself to be perfect. You need to train yourself to show up every day, even when you do not feel like it, especially when you do not feel like it. After a few months, something strange happened to Alex. He was no longer excited about his habits. In the beginning, everything felt new. A new routine, a new mindset, a new version of himself. But now, The excitement was gone. The routine felt ordinary, and this is where most people quit, because they think progress should always feel inspiring. One morning, Alex woke up before his alarm, not because he was motivated, not because he felt strong. He simply woke up and stood up. No argument in his head, no dramatic speech, just action. He realized something important. When a habit becomes normal, it becomes powerful. Before, he needed energy to start. Now, he needed discipline to continue. At work, pressure increased. More tasks, more responsibility, less time. Some days he felt mentally exhausted. Old Alex would have said, "Today is too hard. I'll continue tomorrow." New Alex asked a different question. What is the smallest step I can take today? If he could not study for 20 minutes, he studied for 10. If he could not exercise fully, he stretched and did push-ups. If he felt overwhelmed, he completed one simple task first. He stopped thinking in extremes, not all or nothing, not perfect or failure, just progress. He also noticed something else. Consistency is not only about action, it is about identity. One evening, a friend invited him out late before an important workday. The old version of Alex would have gone without thinking. He did not want to miss out. This time, he paused. He asked himself, what would a disciplined person do? That question changed everything. Instead of asking, what do I feel like doing? He asked, who am I becoming? He chose to leave early and sleep on time. It was not dramatic. No one applauded. No one noticed. But he noticed. Every small choice was shaping his identity. Slowly, he stopped saying, I'm trying to be consistent. He started saying, I am a consistent person. That shift was powerful. Because when consistency becomes part of who you are, quitting feels wrong. There were still difficult days. Days when his mind felt heavy. Days when results seemed slow. Days when he compared himself to others and felt behind. Comparison tried to steal his focus. He saw people online achieving faster success, bigger results, faster growth. For a moment, frustration returned. Then he remembered something simple. Speed is not the goal. Stability is. Many people start fast and quit fast. Few people move steadily for years. He chose to be steady. He created simple rules to protect his progress. No 0 days. No breaking promises to himself. No waiting for perfect conditions. Even on holidays. Even during stress. Even during low energy. He adjusted the intensity, but never the commitment. Months later, the compound effect became clear. His skills were sharper, his body stronger, his thinking clearer. But the biggest change was internal. He trusted himself. When he said, I will do this, he believed it. That kind of trust cannot be bought. It is built. And once you trust yourself, fear becomes smaller, because you know you will not disappear when things get hard. You will show up again and again and again. And that quiet repetition is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. After some time, consistency stopped feeling like effort. It started feeling like responsibility. Alex noticed that he was no longer fighting himself every morning. The real battle had moved somewhere deeper. It was no longer about waking up early or finishing a workout. It was about standards. One evening, he looked at his progress. His body was stronger. His English was smoother. His work performance had improved. From the outside, things looked good. But inside, a new danger appeared. Comfort. Comfort whispered, you've done enough. Comfort said, relax. You deserve a break. Comfort is polite. It sounds reasonable. And that is why it is dangerous. Alex understood something important. Consistency is hardest, not at the beginning, but after you see results. Because once you see improvement, it becomes easy to slow down. One night, he skipped his routine. Just once, he told himself, it was fine. The next day, it felt easier to skip again. He recognized the pattern immediately. Inconsistency does not arrive as a disaster. It arrives as a small permission. So he stopped it early. He sat down and wrote a sentence in his notebook. Discipline is a lifestyle, not a temporary challenge. He reminded himself why he started. Not for attention, not for quick results, but to become reliable. Reliable to himself, The next morning, he returned to his routine, not perfectly, not with high energy, just steadily. He also began to think differently about failure. Before, if he made a mistake, he felt discouraged. Now, he analyzed it. If he missed a workout, he asked, why? If he wasted time, he asked, what triggered it? If he felt lazy, he asked, am I tired or just distracted? He stopped judging himself emotionally. He started studying himself logically. This made him stronger. He understood that consistency is not about never falling. It is about standing up quickly. At work, a new challenge appeared, a long-term project that required patience. Results would not show for months. Many people in his team were excited in the beginning, but after a few weeks, their energy dropped. Complaints started. Motivation disappeared. Alex recognized this pattern. Short excitement, long inconsistency. He decided to approach the project the same way he approached his personal habits. Small daily effort, clear structure, no drama. He broke the project into daily actions. He did not focus on the final result. He focused on today's responsibility. Weeks passed. Others slowed down. He continued. His manager noticed. You're steady, his manager said one afternoon. That word meant more to him than talented or smart. Steady. He realized something powerful. Talent may get attention. Intensity may get applause. But consistency builds trust. And trust creates opportunity. Outside of work, Alex also became more patient with himself. He understood that growth has seasons. Some months are strong and productive. Some months feel slower and heavier. But slow does not mean stop. He kept moving forward, even if the steps were small. One rainy evening, sitting alone again in his room, he reflected on the past year. He was not perfect. He still had weak moments. He still felt tired sometimes. But one thing had changed completely. He no longer depended on motivation to act. He acted because it was who he was becoming, and he understood the deepest lesson so far. Consistency is not something you force forever. At first, you force it. Then you practice it. Finally, you become it. And once you become it, your life begins to transform quietly, powerfully, and permanently. As time moved forward, Alex started to understand a deeper truth about consistency. It was not only about doing things every day. It was about doing them, especially when no one was watching. At the beginning of his journey, he felt proud when others noticed his discipline. Compliments gave him energy. When someone said, "You've changed," it felt good. But now, he asked himself a harder question. If nobody sees my effort, will I still continue? That question separated performance from character. One week, his schedule became chaotic. Unexpected problems at work, family responsibilities, lack of sleep. Everything felt heavier than usual. His routine was tested again. One night, he sat on his bed, exhausted. He looked at the clock. It was late. He still had not studied. He still had not done his small workout. His body said, rest. His mind said, skip today. But another voice, calmer and stronger, said, just begin. He stood up and did 10 push-ups, then 10 more. Then he read 2 pages of his book. It was not impressive. It was not powerful, but it was consistent. He realized something important in that moment. Consistency is built in uncomfortable minutes, not in easy days, not in perfect conditions, in tired evenings, in stressful mornings. That is where character is formed. He also noticed how his thinking had changed over time. Before, he chased results. Now, he chased process. Before, he asked, when will I see success? Now he asked, did I show up today? The second question gave him peace. Because results are slow and sometimes invisible, but effort is always within control. At work, his long-term project was still ongoing. Some teammates had already lost interest. Some delivered less effort. Some blamed the slow progress. Alex did not argue with them. He did not try to convince anyone. He simply continued. Daily preparation, daily improvement, daily responsibility, and slowly, something powerful happened. While others moved in waves of motivation and frustration, he moved in a straight line, not fast, not dramatic, stable. His manager began giving him more trust, more independence, more responsibility, not because he was loud, but because he was reliable. Reliability is rare. Many people start strong. Few continue when things become boring. Alex understood that boredom is part of mastery. Repetition is not exciting, but repetition builds skill. He also began applying consistency to his mindset. When negative thoughts appeared, he did not panic. He replaced them intentionally. If his mind said, "You're tired," he answered, "Do one small step." If his mind said, "This is too slow," he answered, "Slow progress is still progress." He trained his thoughts the same way he trained his body, patiently. One afternoon, while walking home, he noticed something small but meaningful. He no longer argued with himself every day. There was less internal conflict. When it was time to act, he acted. When it was time to rest, he rested. He had created internal order, and that internal order gave him confidence that no outside praise could match. He realized the real reward of consistency was not success. It was self-respect, the quiet knowledge that you are someone who does what he says, that you do not disappear when things get hard, that you continue when others slow down. And as he walked under the evening sky, tired but calm, he understood something clearly. The person he once wanted to become was not built in one big decision. He was built in hundreds of small, repeated, unseen choices. And those choices were still happening every single day. As the months passed, Alex began to face a different kind of challenge. It was no longer laziness. It was no longer inconsistency. It was doubt. Not loud doubt, not dramatic fear, just quiet questions that appeared late at night. Is this really worth it? Will this effort truly change my future? What if I am just moving slowly while others move faster? These thoughts did not stop his actions, but they tried to weaken his belief. One evening, after a long day, he sat at his desk and looked at his progress. Yes, he had improved. Yes, he had grown, but the results were still moderate. Nothing extraordinary, nothing impressive enough to show the world, and that bothered him. He realized something uncomfortable. Part of him still wanted quick recognition. He wanted visible proof that his consistency was working. But consistency does not always give immediate rewards. Sometimes it feels like planting seeds in dry soil. You water, you wait, you see nothing, but beneath the surface, roots are growing. Alex understood that if he stopped now, he would never know how strong those roots could become. So, he made another decision. He would detach from immediate outcomes. Instead of measuring success by big results, he measured it by standards. Did I follow my routine today? Did I improve even 1%? Did I act according to my values? If the answer was yes, that was enough. At work, a colleague received a promotion before him. For a moment, jealousy appeared. It was quick, sharp, and uncomfortable. Old Alex would have felt defeated. He would have compared himself and lost confidence. Now he paused. He reminded himself, my timeline is mine. Comparison is the enemy of consistency. When you compare too much, you either feel superior or inferior. Both are distractions. He congratulated his colleague sincerely. Then he returned to his own path. That night, he worked quietly on improving one specific skill. No drama, no emotional reaction, just focus. He also started to see consistency as a form of quiet power. Most people are controlled by mood. If they feel good, they act. If they feel bad, they stop. Alex trained himself to act beyond mood. He still felt tired. He still felt frustrated sometimes. But feelings no longer decided his behavior. His standards did. One rainy weekend, he almost broke his routine again. The weather was cold. The room was warm. The bed felt comfortable. His mind offered excuses with logic. You worked hard all week. You deserve rest. One day won't matter. He smiled slightly. He had heard these arguments before. Instead of fighting them emotionally, he stood up calmly and started his smallest habit. 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Often, starting was enough to continue. He realized something powerful. Consistency is less about strength and more about decision speed. The faster you decide to act, the less time excuses have to grow. Over time, his identity became clearer. He was not someone who chased motivation. He was not someone who waited for the perfect moment. He was someone who showed up. That identity protected him during low moments. Because when you know who you are, temporary emotions lose control. Years ago, Alex wanted success. Now, he wanted discipline more than success. Because he understood a deep truth. Success without discipline disappears. Discipline without success eventually creates success. And as he closed his notebook one evening, he felt something stronger than motivation. He felt stability, a quiet, grounded confidence that came from doing the work again and again. Even when the world did not applaud, he no longer needed excitement. He needed consistency, and that was enough to keep him moving forward. By now, Alex had built something solid. Not perfect, not flashy, but solid. And that is when life decided to test him for real. One morning, he received unexpected news. A major change at work. New management, new rules, uncertainty about positions, rumors everywhere. The office energy shifted overnight. People whispered in corners. Anxiety spread quickly. Some started updating their resumes immediately. Others complained all day. Alex felt the pressure too. He was not made of stone. His heart beat faster. His mind imagined worst-case scenarios. What if I lose everything I worked for? For a few hours, fear tried to take control. But later that evening, sitting alone, he asked himself a grounding question. What is still in my control? Not the company decisions. Not the market, not other people's opinions, only his effort, only his preparation, only his attitude. So the next day, while others were distracted by rumors, he focused on improving his performance. He reviewed his projects, organized his tasks, learned a new skill related to his field. He did not ignore reality, he prepared for it. Consistency gave him something powerful during uncertainty. Stability. When everything outside feels unstable, your habits become your anchor. He kept his morning routine. He kept his workouts. He kept his study time. Not because life was easy, but because life was hard. That difference mattered. During stressful weeks, many people abandon their discipline first. They sleep badly, eat poorly, stop improving, then stress becomes heavier. Alex did the opposite. He protected his basics, sleep, movement, learning. He understood that discipline is not only for growth, it is for survival. After several tense weeks, decisions were announced. Some employees were moved, some left. Alex was given more responsibility, not less. His manager called him in and said something simple. During chaos, you stayed focused. That matters. It was not luck. It was preparation meeting opportunity. Walking home that day, Alex reflected on how far he had come. Years ago, unexpected stress would have destroyed his routine. He would have reacted emotionally. He would have lost direction. Now, stress revealed his strength instead of his weakness. He realized something important. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Because he had built strong daily systems, he did not collapse when pressure increased. He bent slightly, but he did not break. There were still moments of doubt, still moments of fatigue. He was human, but he had trained himself to respond instead of react. When fear appeared, he asked, "What action can I take?" When confusion appeared, he asked, "What is the next small step?" Always back to action, always back to consistency. And slowly, his confidence became deeper. Not loud confidence, not arrogance, calm confidence. The kind that says, whatever happens, I will adapt. I will continue. I will show up. He finally understood that consistency is not about perfect days. It is about stable behavior in unstable times. And that kind of strength changes not only your results, it changes who you are at your core, with more responsibility at work and more stability in his habits. Alex entered a new phase of his life. From the outside, it looked like success, but inside, he faced a quieter challenge. Growth brings isolation. The more disciplined he became, the more different he felt from some of his old friends. Weekend plans changed. Late-night distractions no longer attracted him. Conversations that once felt normal now felt empty. At first, this confused him. Was he becoming boring? Was he losing connection? One Friday night, his phone filled with messages. His friends were going out. Loud music. Long night. No plans for tomorrow. For a moment, he felt the old pull. It would be easy to go, easy to forget the routine, easy to blend in again, but he paused and asked himself something deeper. Does this align with the person I am building? He did not judge his friends. He did not think he was better. He simply understood that his priorities had changed. He chose to stay home that night, not because he hated fun, not because he was forced, but because he respected his direction. At first, that choice felt lonely. Discipline often feels lonely before it feels powerful. He spent the evening reviewing his goals, reading, preparing for the next week. Quiet actions, invisible progress, and something interesting happened over time. The loneliness slowly transformed into clarity. He realized he was not losing people. He was filtering his environment. Some friendships naturally faded. Others grew stronger because they were based on deeper values. He also began attracting different conversations. People who talked about ideas, growth, plans, not just complaints or temporary excitement. Consistency does not only change your habits, it changes your circle. At work, he was now trusted with bigger projects. Younger employees started asking him for advice. They saw his calm focus and wanted to understand it. One colleague asked him, "How do you stay so disciplined?" Alex thought for a moment before answering. "I don't wait to feel ready. I just start." That was it. No secret formula, no complicated system. Start small, repeat daily, protect your standards. He also learned to manage his energy better. Earlier in his journey, he believed working harder meant working longer. Now, he understood the importance of balance. He scheduled rest intentionally. He disconnected from distractions intentionally. He protected his mental space intentionally. Because burnout is the enemy of long-term consistency, he understood that discipline is not punishment. It is structure, and structure creates freedom. The more structured his days became, the less chaotic his mind felt. He no longer wasted hours deciding what to do. His priorities were clear, and clarity saves energy. One evening, standing in front of the mirror, he saw a different version of himself. Not dramatically different, but sharper, more grounded, more intentional. He remembered the old version of himself who waited for motivation, who quit when things became difficult, who doubted his ability to stay consistent. That version still existed somewhere in his memory, but it no longer controlled him. He understood a powerful lesson. You do not eliminate weakness, you outgrow it. And outgrowing it requires time, repetition, and patience. As the weeks passed, Alex felt less emotional turbulence, fewer internal battles, more quiet, focus. He was no longer chasing change. He was living it. And for the first time, he realized something beautiful. Consistency does not make life smaller. It makes life stronger. Years passed, but to Alex, it did not feel dramatic. There was no single day where everything changed. No sudden moment where he felt he had made it. Instead, his life improved the same way. A sunrise happens, slowly, quietly. Then, one day, you realize it is bright. He was no longer the person who needed motivation videos to start. He was no longer the person who promised big changes every Monday. He had become steady, and steadiness changed everything. One afternoon, he visited his old neighborhood. The same streets, the same small shops, the same park bench where he once sat feeling frustrated with himself. He sat there again, but this time with a different mindset. He remembered the version of himself who complained about lack of opportunity, the version who blamed circumstances, the version who said, "I will start tomorrow." He did not feel shame. He felt gratitude, because that frustrated version of him had finally decided to take one small step. That step led to another, and another, and another. He realized something powerful. Big transformations are built from small, repeated actions that look unimportant at first. No one celebrates the first day you wake up early. No one applauds when you study alone at night. No one sees the workouts you almost skipped but completed anyway. But those invisible moments build visible results. At work, Alex was now leading projects instead of following them. People trusted his judgment. His calm presence influenced meetings. When problems appeared, others looked at him for direction, not because he was the loudest, but because he was the most consistent. At home, his habits were automatic. He no longer argued with himself about discipline. It was part of his identity. He understood something that many people miss. Motivation is emotional, discipline is structural, and structure wins over time. He also learned to forgive himself faster. When he made mistakes, he corrected them quickly. He no longer wasted days in guilt. Because consistency is not perfection, it is correction. One evening, a younger colleague asked him for advice. The colleague felt stuck, impatient, frustrated with slow progress. Alex listened carefully. Then he said something simple. Do not focus on becoming successful. Focus on becoming reliable. Reliable people improve even when they are tired. Reliable people continue when excitement disappears. Reliable people do not negotiate with their values. Success is unstable without reliability. As the years shaped him, Alex discovered the final truth of his journey. Consistency is not something you do. It is someone you become. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you respond to stress. It changes the way others see you. But most importantly, it changes the way you see yourself. Sitting in that old park, watching the sunset, he understood that the biggest victory was not career growth or external success. It was self-trust. The quiet confidence that if life becomes difficult again, he will not collapse. He will adjust. He will act. He will continue. Because he is no longer waiting for the perfect moment. He builds progress in imperfect moments. And that is the real power of consistency. Not speed, not talent, not luck. Daily action, repeated long enough, until your future has no choice but to change. So now you're still here. Good. Most people quit stories halfway, just like they quit their goals. By this stage in his life, Alex no longer measured time the way he used to. He did not count months. He did not obsess over results. He measured days by one simple question. Did I move forward today? Not dramatically, not perfectly, just forward. There were still difficult seasons. Life did not suddenly become easy because he became disciplined. In fact, new levels brought new pressure. Bigger projects meant bigger risks. More responsibility meant more expectations. More growth meant higher standards. And sometimes, late at night, he felt the weight of it. He would sit quietly and think, what if I fail now? What if I cannot handle this level? But something had changed inside him. Fear no longer stopped him. It only reminded him to prepare better. Instead of panicking, he planned. Instead of complaining, he trained. Instead of avoiding, he acted. He understood that pressure is not a signal to quit. It is a signal that you are expanding. One week, a major project he led did not go as planned. Mistakes were made. Deadlines were missed. Criticism followed. Years ago, this would have destroyed his confidence. He would have replayed the failure in his mind for days. Now, he did something different. He reviewed the mistakes calmly. He took responsibility without excuses. He created a correction plan. Then he moved forward. That is maturity, not avoiding failure, but shortening the time between failure and correction. He also began to see how far discipline had taken him internally. His emotions were more stable. His reactions were slower and wiser. His decisions were less impulsive. He did not chase short-term comfort anymore. He chose long-term strength. One quiet morning, while reviewing his goals, he noticed something interesting. The goals themselves had changed. Before, he wanted external proof, money, titles, recognition. Now, his goals were deeper: clarity, impact, growth. He wanted to become the kind of person who could handle success responsibly, because he had learned something that many ignore. If your character is weak, success becomes dangerous. But if your character is strong, success becomes useful. Alex no longer feared hard work. He feared stagnation. He no longer feared slow progress. He feared excuses. And that shift made all the difference. When younger people asked him how to stay motivated, he did not give them dramatic speeches. He told them the truth. You will not always feel strong. You will not always feel inspired. Build systems that work, even when you feel nothing. Because feelings are temporary, standards are permanent. As he walked through another busy week, solving problems, making decisions, staying consistent, he realized something quietly powerful. He had built a life that once felt impossible, not because he was special, but because he stayed. He stayed when it was boring. He stayed when it was slow. He stayed when it was uncomfortable. And staying, over time, creates strength. He understood now that success is not a moment. It is maintenance. It is showing up again tomorrow, and the day after that, without drama, without excuses, just steady movement forward. And that kind of life, simple and disciplined, becomes unstoppable. By the time Alex reached the stage of his life, something subtle but powerful had happened. He no longer felt like he was chasing a better future. He was living it, not a perfect life, not a stress-free life, but a life built on intention instead of impulse. And that changes everything. One early morning, before the city woke up, he sat with a notebook and wrote a simple sentence. Who am I becoming? Years ago, that question would have confused him. He would have written goals about money, status, or proving people wrong. Now, his answer was different. I am becoming dependable, not impressive, not famous. Dependable. He understood that the world does not desperately need more talented people. It needs reliable people. People who do what they say. People who finish what they start. People who remain steady when others panic. He saw how rare that was. In meetings, when tension rose, he stayed calm. When deadlines approached, he focused instead of blaming. When others searched for shortcuts, he stayed with fundamentals. This consistency built something stronger than skill. It built trust. And trust opened doors that effort alone could not. But here is the part most people do not see. Consistency also forced him to confront himself. There were days when he was tired of being disciplined, days when he wanted to escape responsibility, days when he envied people who seemed carefree. He did not pretend those feelings did not exist. He simply did not let them lead. He learned that maturity is not the absence of temptation, it is the management of it. One evening, after finishing a long week, he walked home slowly. The city lights reflected on the pavement. He thought about the years behind him. No dramatic turning point, just thousands of small decisions. Wake up, do the work, improve slightly, repeat. That rhythm shaped his character more than any motivational speech ever could. He realized something important. At the beginning, discipline feels heavy. In the middle, it feels normal. In the end, it feels freeing. Because when your habits are strong, your mind is lighter. You do not constantly negotiate with yourself. You do not waste energy fighting laziness every morning. You act. And action builds confidence. Not fake confidence. Not loud confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind that whispers, I can handle this. One day, someone asked him what changed his life. He did not mention a book. He did not mention luck. He did not mention a perfect opportunity. He said one sentence, I stopped waiting to feel ready, stopped waiting for approval, stopped waiting for the perfect time. Waiting had been his biggest excuse. Action became his biggest advantage. Now, when challenges appear, he does not ask, why is this happening to me? He asks, how can I grow through this? That shift made him resilient, and resilience made him dangerous in the best way. Because a person who refuses to quit, who refuses to blame, who refuses to stay stagnant, becomes unstoppable over time. As he closed his notebook that morning, he understood something deeply. Consistency is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is not loud. But it builds a version of you that no setback can easily destroy. And that version of you is worth every early morning, every disciplined choice, every quiet sacrifice. Not because it makes life easy, but because it makes you strong enough to handle whatever life brings. At this point, Alex no longer chased improvement like a hungry person chasing food. Growth had become part of his nature. Still, it had one more lesson waiting for him. Because apparently humans only learn after being tested again and again. One year, something unexpected happened. A personal setback. Not professional this time. Not a missed deadline or a failed project. Something closer to the heart. A relationship he cared about deeply began to fall apart. For the first time in a long while, he felt unstable. You can control your schedule. You can control your habits. You can control your effort. But you cannot control another person's feelings. That reality hit hard. Old emotions tried to return. Overthinking, self-doubt, the temptation to distract himself from pain. He noticed something interesting, though. Even in emotional chaos, his foundation did not disappear. He still woke up on time. He still exercised. He still went to work prepared, not because he felt strong, but because he had trained himself to move forward even when he felt weak. That is the real power of discipline. It carries you when motivation and happiness are gone. Some nights were heavy. He allowed himself to feel the sadness. He did not pretend to be invincible. He did not bury emotions under productivity. He sat with them, but he did not let them destroy his structure. He understood that pain is part of life. Avoiding it only delays growth. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" he asked, "What can this teach me?" That question changed everything. He learned about communication. He learned about patience. He learned about his own flaws. And most importantly, he learned that strength is not emotional coldness. Strength is emotional control. He did not become bitter. He did not become closed. He became wiser. During this period, many people around him were surprised. They expected him to fall apart. They expected dramatic reactions. But he remained steady, not because he did not care, because he cared about his future self more than his temporary emotions. One quiet evening, he looked at his reflection again and noticed something different. His confidence was no longer built on success. It was built on survival. He had handled pressure. He had handled failure. Now, he had handled heartbreak. And he was still standing. That realization gave him a deeper layer of self-trust. He understood something many people discover too late. You cannot build a strong life without building a strong inner world. Habits shape your body, skills shape your career, but mindset shapes your entire existence. He began journaling more, reflecting more, not obsessively, intentionally. He examined his reactions. He studied his patterns. He corrected his weaknesses. Because growth does not stop when things hurt. Sometimes it accelerates. Weeks turned into months. The pain softened. Clarity replaced confusion. And through it all, he never abandoned his core standards. That consistency during emotional difficulty made him realize one final truth. Real growth is tested in silence. When no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when you could easily quit and nobody would blame you, but you continue, not loudly, quietly, and that quiet strength becomes your greatest asset. Alex was no longer building success. He was building character, and character, once solid, carries you through every season of life. Time kept moving, as it always does. The world stayed busy, loud, distracted. Trends changed. People chased new shortcuts. Everyone wanted faster results. Alex noticed it all, and for the first time, he did not feel tempted. There was a strange calm inside him now, not because life had become simple, but because he had become stable. He understood something that many people never slowed down enough to realize. Speed impresses people. Stability sustains you. He had already experienced rapid progress. He had felt ambition, pressure, hunger. Now, he valued something deeper, longevity. He did not want quick wins that disappeared. He wanted strength that lasted decades. At work, opportunities became bigger, leadership roles, more visibility, higher expectations. Earlier in his journey, this would have excited his ego. Now, it activated his responsibility. He asked himself, "Am I prepared internally for this level?" Because he had learned a hard truth. External growth without internal maturity creates collapse. So, he doubled down on fundamentals. He reviewed his routines. He strengthened his time boundaries. He protected his physical health more seriously. He stopped glorifying exhaustion. Rest became strategic. Silence became necessary. He reduced noise in his life. Fewer meaningless conversations. Less comparison. Less digital distraction. Clarity expanded. And with clarity came better decisions. One afternoon, a major opportunity appeared. It promised money, visibility, and fast recognition. On the surface, it looked perfect. But something felt slightly misaligned. Old Alex would have accepted immediately. New Alex paused. He asked himself 3 questions. Does this align with my values? Will this improve my long-term growth? Can I sustain this without sacrificing my integrity? The answers were uncomfortable. He declined the offer. People around him were shocked. Some called it foolish. Some said he was overthinking, but he felt peace. And peace is a powerful indicator. He understood that success is not about accepting every opportunity. It is about choosing the right ones. That decision strengthened his self-respect. Because self-respect grows every time you protect your standards. Over time, he noticed another change. He no longer compared himself to others. Not because he was superior, but because he was focused. Comparison wastes energy that could be used for creation. He replaced competition with self-evaluation. Am I improving? Am I aligned? Am I consistent? If the answer was yes, that was enough. He also began mentoring others more intentionally, not as a motivational speaker, not dramatically, simply through example. He showed up prepared. He stayed calm under pressure. He admitted mistakes openly, and people learned, not from his words, from his behavior. One evening, after a long day, he reflected on the entire journey, from confusion to clarity, from inconsistency to structure, from insecurity to quiet confidence. It had not been glamorous. It had been repetitive, and repetition built mastery. He understood something now that few appreciate. You do not need to change your entire life overnight. You need to control your days. Control enough days, and your life reshapes itself. As he prepared for the next chapter, he felt no rush, no desperation, just readiness. Because he knew something with certainty. As long as he protects his habits, his mindset, and his standards, he will continue to evolve, not quickly, but reliably, and reliability over time becomes extraordinary. At this stage, Alex stopped thinking about levels. Life was no longer a game he was trying to win. It was a responsibility he was trying to carry. Well, he had built discipline. He had built resilience. He had built clarity. Now, he was building legacy. Not legacy in a dramatic sense. Not statues or headlines. Something quieter. Impact. He began to notice how his behavior affected others. The way he handled stress influenced his team. The way he spoke during difficulty shaped the emotional tone of the room. Leadership, he realized, is less about authority and more about emotional stability. When he stayed calm, others relaxed. When he focused on solutions, others stopped complaining. When he took responsibility, others followed. That awareness changed how he moved through the world. He became more intentional with his words. He listened longer before speaking. He chose honesty over comfort, because he understood that influence is constant. Even when you are silent, you are teaching something. One day, a younger colleague made a serious mistake. It cost time. It cost money. The tension in the office was heavy. Years ago, Alex might have reacted with frustration. Now, he did something different. He called the colleague into a quiet room and asked one question. What did you learn? No shouting, no humiliation, just reflection. The colleague explained the mistake, owned it, and outlined how to prevent it in the future. Alex nodded and said, "Good. Then this mistake was expensive, but not wasted." That moment built loyalty more than criticism ever could. He understood that strength is not domination. It is guidance. Outside of work, his life was simpler than people expected. He valued routine. He valued meaningful conversations. He valued physical health and mental clarity. He no longer needed constant stimulation. Silence did not scare him. In silence, he could think. And thinking clearly is rare. He also accepted something else. There would always be another goal, another challenge, another mountain. So instead of chasing endless achievement, he focused on enjoying the process. He learned to appreciate small victories, a productive morning, a difficult conversation handled well, a habit maintained during a stressful week. These quiet wins built deep satisfaction. He stopped waiting for a big moment to feel proud. He felt proud of consistency. One evening, sitting alone after finishing a long-term project, he reflected on his early years, the doubts, the delays, the excuses. He felt compassion for that younger version of himself. Because growth is not about hating who you were. It is about honoring the fact that you decided to improve. He understood something that changed his perspective completely. The real victory is not becoming better than others. It is becoming better than your former self, repeatedly. And that battle never truly ends. But now, he was prepared for it. He had built systems that protected him from laziness. He had built awareness that protected him from ego. He had built patience that protected him from burnout. Those internal tools mattered more than any external achievement. As the years continued, he carried himself differently, not louder, not arrogant, just grounded. Grounded in the knowledge that if everything disappeared tomorrow, he could rebuild. Because the most valuable thing he owned was not money, status, or recognition. It was his character, and character, once forged through repetition and discipline, becomes unshakable. By now, Alex understood something that would have sounded boring to his younger self. Stability is power, not loud power, not dramatic power, the kind of power that does not need attention to exist. His days were structured, but not rigid. He had room to adapt, but not room to drift. That balance had taken years to build. He no longer chased intensity. He protected consistency because he finally understood the cost of chaos. Chaos looks exciting at first. Late nights, big risks, emotional decisions, sudden changes. But chaos steals focus. It weakens discipline. It destroys long-term progress. He had lived that way once. Now, he chose structure. He began thinking beyond personal success. He thought about sustainability. Could he maintain this pace for 10 years? Could he grow without burning out? Could he win without losing himself? Those questions shaped his decisions more than ambition ever did. He became selective with commitments. Not cold, not distant, just intentional. If something did not align with his long-term direction, he declined respectfully. Every no protected a stronger yes. That awareness gave him control over his time. And control over time is control over life. One afternoon, during a difficult quarter at work, pressure increased again. Targets were high. Expectations were higher. People began to stress. Alex noticed the atmosphere shift. He gathered the team and spoke simply. We focus on what we control: effort, preparation, communication. The rest will follow. No dramatic speech. No fake optimism, just clarity. And clarity reduced fear. He had learned that when people panic, they need direction, not emotion. He also noticed something personal. He was no longer easily shaken by other people's opinions. Criticism did not break him. Praise did not inflate him. He evaluated feedback calmly. If it was useful, he applied it. If it was noise, he ignored it. Emotional neutrality became one of his greatest strengths. It allowed him to stay balanced. Outside of work, he invested more time in reflection, not in a heavy or obsessive way, simply checking alignment. Is my daily routine supporting my long-term vision? Are my habits still serving me? Am I growing, or just maintaining comfort? He refused to become comfortable in a way that led to stagnation. Comfort is good. Complacency is dangerous. That distinction protected his growth. Years ago, he chased motivation. Now, he valued discipline. Years ago, he chased recognition. Now, he valued impact. Years ago, he feared failure. Now, he feared wasting potential. He understood that life does not reward intensity for a week. It rewards direction for years. And direction requires clarity. Clarity requires silence. Silence requires discipline. Everything connected. One evening, walking home under quiet streetlights, he realized something simple but powerful. He was no longer trying to prove anything. Not to his family, not to his colleagues, not to the world. He was building a life that felt aligned. Aligned with his values. Aligned with his standards. Aligned with the person he chose to become. That alignment created peace. And peace created strength. He did not need constant validation anymore. He needed consistency, because consistency had transformed him from someone who hoped for change into someone who engineered it. And when you learn how to engineer your own growth, you stop fearing the future, you start preparing for it. In the end, Alex understood that the journey was never about becoming perfect. It was about becoming intentional. He did not become rich overnight. He did not become famous. He did not live without problems. What he built was something far more valuable. He built control over himself. He learned that discipline beats motivation, that patience beats pressure, that direction beats speed. He stopped blaming circumstances. He stopped waiting for the right moment. He stopped negotiating with his excuses. Instead, he chose daily action, small improvements, clear standards, honest reflection. Over the years, those simple choices shaped a powerful truth. You do not change your life in one dramatic moment. You change it in quiet mornings when no one is watching, in hard decisions when shortcuts are available, in disciplined habits when you feel tired. That is where character is built, and character is what carries you when everything else shakes. Alex's story was never about talent. It was about staying consistent, staying responsible, staying committed when quitting would have been easier. In the end, he did not just reach goals. He became someone capable of reaching any goal. And that is the real victory. If there is one lesson in his story, it is simple. Your future is not created by hope. It is created by your daily standards. Protect them, strengthen them, live by them, and slowly, quietly, your life will transform. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay disciplined, stay patient, keep moving forward. Goodbye.